Hello and welcome to another episode of Dyer Times. I'm your host David Dyer, and today we find ourselves in a very cold and very snowy place. Here with me?
Hi, I'm Lindsay, and I'm a longtime friend of David's, an outdoor enthusiast and a nature lover.
Absolutely, and today we're going to take a look at the E&O, or Eagle's Nest Outfitters, Underquilt line. The Blaze, the Vulcan, the Ember, and the Top Quilt Igniter. So, I'm going to put her to the test, those to the test, and not something you're going to want to miss. So let's go get those things out. We're in a little warmer place where we can take a better look at them before we get them outside.
I'm ready.
Awesome, let's do it. Here before you is the entire Eagle's Nest Outfitters Underquilt and Top Quilt line. We have the Ember, the Top Quilt Igniter, the Blaze, and the Vulcan. So we're going to take each of these out and look at them a little more in depth, starting with the Ember. Now, the Ember is definitely more of a fall, springtime camping accessory. Typically meant for temperatures between 40 and 50 degrees. So if we take it out, it's in a great little compression sack, so you can get it nice and tight for any kind of your pack camping. The Ember is actually made of a very nice and very durable ripstop nylon. The insulation inside is actually a high loft insulation, so it's going to be light and it's going to keep you relatively warm if you're just sleeping in the Ember and nothing else. But that is, again, fall, springtime. It's very easy to attach to the hammock, and we'll actually show that a little bit later. The big thing I want to point out with this is the shape. This is not really meant to be form-fitting around the person in the hammock. Obviously, it's going to fit around you, but it has these hard edges right here that, when wrapped around the hammock, are going to create air pockets that are going to be cold. So when you're in the hammock, especially at your back and your shoulders, if you don't have something under you like a blanket, a towel, or a sleeping bag, something like that, you're going to notice it's going to be pretty chilly right in that area. So that's kind of one of the bigger differences between this and your other underquilts, is it's not form-fitting. But an excellent camping accessory at about $175. It's hard to beat if you know you're going to be camping in those conditions. Also coming in at $175 is the Vulcan. Now, we're going to take a kind of a side-by-side comparison of the Vulcan and the Blaze. So I'm actually going to get them both out. And you're going to notice immediately that this is in this huge bag and this one is not. What Eagle's Nest Outfitters has done is, if I can find it in here, let me dig through. There it is. Each of them come with two bags, a compression sack and a storage sack. Eagle's Nest Outfitters recommends that when storing your hammock, when not using it, say in the summertime, or your underquilt, excuse me, that you put it in this storage sack. That's going to actually extend the life of your quilt because it's not going to be compressing that insulation, which is, of course, going to reduce the effectiveness of it. So that's kind of the big thing there. Now, we're going to pull the Vulcan out, and you're going to notice it's beautiful, beautiful bright colors. And side by side, we're going to pull the Blaze out. You're going to notice the design is almost identical. And just so you can see, in this compression sack, there's the storage sack for the Blaze. Now, you're going to notice, like I said, construction is almost identical. There's some stitching differences, of course. They're made of relatively the same materials, except for two things. One being the type of insulation used. The Blaze uses a duck-down insulation, and the Vulcan uses a Permaloft synthetic insulation. The only other difference is the weight. The Vulcan comes in at 30 ounces and the Blaze comes in at 24 ounces. So depending on how you hike and camp, if you're very weight-minded, you may want to go with the Blaze. Now, if you're allergic to duck down, you're going to, of course, want to go with the Vulcan. So, you kind of have some options to play with. The big thing here is the Vulcan is $175 roundabout, and the Blaze is $299, roughly $300. So that being some major differences in cost, it may push you to one or the other. As far as temperature ranges, they're both rated for 30 to 40 degrees, so not too big a difference there. Construction, like I said, is very similar. They're both going to fit up around the hammock and subsequently the person in it. They have these great shock cords, these elastic cords that run the length of it. They really pull it up around the hammock to keep you warm. In addition, on the very ends here, which is where it hooks into the carabiners, again, we'll show that here in a little bit later, they have these cords here that will pull tight and really create a space where no air can get in and around and get you cold while you're in the hammock. Something that I will point out immediately that you should absolutely 100% check and do before you go too far with your hammock is right here, and I did this to myself. I got excited, I got it, I wanted to get it on the hammock. So I got it on there and I pulled these tight to pull it up around the hammock, and you'll see exactly how that works a little bit later. And these little tie points right here weren't tied quite tight enough, and this pulled out. When that happened, it was I couldn't get it back in the field for sure, and it took me a long time to figure out how to weasel a wire through here and get that pulled back through. So one of your first things you want to do is when you get it is make sure that those knots on the very end are pulled very tight so they're not going to come out. Now, these systems are excellent and can be used with a sleeping bag, or they can be used with the top quilt. Now, the top quilt, also known as the igniter, weighs in at about 23 ounces and is good to about 35 to 45 degrees. Now, it is the same duck down fill as the Blaze is, coming in at around $230 price-wise. It's a pretty neat little setup. The whole idea is you don't need a sleeping bag. So you just use this and one of the underquilts. So let's pull these out of here so you can get a better look at the igniter. And this, again, just like the other two, comes with a storage sack. So if we lay this out, it actually lays completely flat and just looks like a big piece of rectangular fabric with kind of a neck pillow in here to keep any draft from coming down. What makes it unique is on the end there's two snaps and a piece of Velcro that hold it about, I'd say, a foot and a half from the bottom together. And then there's a cinch cord here that takes the end and pulls that tight. So in essence, what you've created here is kind of a half sleeping bag. So you can stick your feet in this and then just wrap the edges around you while you're in the underquilts, and you're going to stay very warm. It's kind of nice in conjunction with these because you don't have to carry a sleeping bag depending on temperatures, and it just makes getting in and out of the hammock very easy. Now we're actually going to show you here a little bit how to get in and out of a hammock with a sleeping bag and with the top quilt igniter. So you're going to see some differences there, but ultimately it all comes down to what works best for you. So now that we've taken a look at all these, we're going to get outside, and it's supposed to be really cold tonight, but we're going to brave those extreme temperatures to see just what these systems can do. So we've made it a little ways off into the woods, and we're going to take a look at some of the underquilt series and how they actually go up under the hammock. Now, we're going to do a little bit of an experiment and spend the night out here. Well, actually, she's going to spend the night out here, which is, a brave volunteer, given that it is 12 degrees out. So because of that, we're actually not going to demonstrate the Ember underquilt. This underquilt is primarily meant for camping in, say, fall or spring weather, when you're typically around 40 to 50 degrees. So I think it might be a little bit reckless to use this one this evening. But we'll go ahead and put it up so you can see how that works, but really leave this one to a little fairer weather than this. So the experiment is, if you want to call it an experiment, is we're going to take one of these wireless temperature sensors and put one around her neck, chest area, and one at her feet. Then we're going to look at two things. One, how long it takes for you to get warm in the hammock. So from being at whatever the outside temperature is to being warm and comfortable, how long that takes. Then we're going to look at kind of some temperature readings throughout the night. So is she still warm? Is she not still warm? What are we looking at? But either way, we do have some medical personnel standing by and a warm location just right over here. So if something goes wrong, we can get her out, get her warm. So I would not recommend you do this without that standing by. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Awesome, let's get to it. All right, so here we are. We're going to take a look at the Ember really quickly. We already saw how it comes, so go ahead and bust that thing out and we'll get it on this hammock. All right. As we said earlier, the only real downside of this is the fact that it doesn't form fit to your body. You're gonna see that when we get it up on the hammock. As far as installing it on the hammock, it's very easy. You'll notice there are 2 elastic cords on either end. Just latch them into the clips that attach your slap straps to. Once you get it in there, you can actually adjust the tension by this little toggle, and then put your hammock inside and get in it like you normally would. You really want to make sure you have a hold of the hammock and not the ember when getting in and out of it, because it can kind of be a little embarrassing if you miss. All right, so now that this is up around there, you can see it kind of comes up on either side. It has some air pockets underneath, as we discussed earlier, and that's actually, even though it's wrapped around you, it's going to be cold right there. So really more of a fall spring camping item, but just wanted to show you how it works with the hammock. If you do want to use this one in a little colder weather, we'll show you how to, I don't want to say properly, but more easily get in and out of a hammock in a sleeping bag, which if you've never done, can be an absolute challenge.
Although I do have some experience with hammocking, I do not, however, have experience getting into hammocks with a sleeping bag. It can be very tricky and can take up a lot of your patience, your time, and your energy if you don't do it correctly. So this will be my first time, and David is happy to walk me through this.
Absolutely, and I've seen people do this a couple different ways. My preferred method is to actually kind of throw it over so you have a control point just behind where you're going to sit in the hammock, and then step into it like you would put on a pair of overalls.
Now, would you normally want to take your shoes off for this?
I would say that's up to you. In this weather, in this camping, I may not, but I also have a gear slinger under my hammock, which keeps everything up off the ground, and we may do an accessories video sometime in the future and actually take a deeper look at that.
Great.
But for this, let's just keep them on and go from there. But that's a good question. All right, so now once both her feet are in there, you want to put the whole sleeping bag on like a big hood. So she's kind of in it standing, but this gives you the ability to the mobility of your arms to reach behind you. And again, make absolutely certain with all this going on around you that you have a hold of the actual hammock, not the ember, or not something that's going to put you on the ground. Slip into the hammock just like you normally would without a sleeping bag on. Twist around. Yep, just lay back and then just throw it up around you. And you're good and comfy. All right, so now that we have a look at the ember and we know how we're going to get in and out of the hammock with the sleeping bag on, let's actually get the Blaze and the Vulcan out.
Let's do it.
Awesome. And we're also going to go over the igniter, which is the top quilt. And that actually removes the necessity for a sleeping bag. So you don't have to worry about all this. You just slip into the hammock, slip it over your feet, and you're in essence in a sleeping bag. It's pretty nice.
Yes.
So let's check it out.
All right.
Much like the ember, it goes on the hammock pretty much the same way. This one though has a few extra bells and whistles to keep you even warmer.
And we definitely need that right
Yeah,
now.
I think it's around 0
It is.
right now. So we're gonna stretch this out, and it goes around the hammock the same way the ember does.
It feels like it's a little bit tighter than the ember.
It actually is, and you can see that it's definitely a lot more springy. So let's throw the hammock in there. All right, so in addition to being a little more snug around the hammock, wrapping you up, it also has these little insets right here, which we're going to pull And you can actually adjust these when you're in the hammock too. It takes a little bit of extra work. But you see what that does is actually pull that up around.
Yeah.
So it really like hugs you as you're in there.
And right now we're going to need all the body heat we
Yeah,
can get.
every bit of it. The top quilt, which is really a big rectangular blanket, which has an opening here just like we showed you earlier, and cinches up around the feet like that. This basically creates your sleeping bag. So if you want to hop up in the hammock, making sure that you have a hold of the hammock and not the Vulcan.
Now this one does seem a little bit trickier because the Vulcan is so much higher than the hammock, whereas before the hammock was actually higher than the Ember.
It really wants to hug, and then when you get in it, you'll see, like, it really wants, it's kind of like a full body hug. It's really nice. All right, so you can see how it really comes up around her on both sides without any extra help. Some of the things I like to do occasionally is actually I'll take a carabiner or something and pull these across with an extra cordage to kind of really make it come up across me. But the Igniter top quilt is just as simple as throwing your feet into the blue area and pulling the rest up around you and tucking it down your sides. All right, so that should keep her good and warm throughout the night in 30 or 40 degree weather. Like I said, we're really going to push this to the extreme. Tonight it's supposed to be 0 and potentially into some of the negative numbers. So we'll see how well it works. All right, so it's well into nighttime and we have definitely encountered some interesting and pretty dynamic problems. GoPro's not working, battery's dying. It is currently about -7. These are reading. So we're gonna try and put her in this for a little bit and see what we can do. So if you can just tuck that in the top of your jacket there, and then we'll take the other one and I'll just tuck it in the top of your boot. Hop on in there.
All right.
And we'll give it some time and see what happens.
All right.
But it's actually really interesting because the readouts on our temperature things are starting to freeze. So let's try it.
Things to plan for when you're out in the woods,
right,
in the cold.
This is -2 is the current reading on her feet, and -4 is the current reading on the one at her chest.
Yeah, a little hand here.
Yeah, I'm gonna tuck you in. Keep you nice and warm if we can. All right, well, we're gonna come back here in just a little bit. I say come back, we're gonna go right over there. So we'll see how it works out. We've reached a point, we're about the 30-minute mark. It's a -7 out right now, and we've reached a point where she doesn't really want to continue, which is perfectly okay, because we have definitely pushed this system far past what it's rated for. So we've learned a lot. We did get a temperature increase over the last 30 minutes, but it's really just been the thermometer's warming up to about her body temperature. So we're gonna get her out of here and get her in a warm, dry, safe place, and check this out tomorrow and see you know, what's working, what's not working, maybe what you can do differently, and then get this back in those temperature ranges for safe, snowy, cold hammocking. So let's do that. All right, well, let's get up and get you warm.
It's definitely cold.
That's slick. So last night was really interesting. As you can see from the footage, it was very challenging, not just for us, but also for our equipment. We managed to schedule the production of this video on one of the coldest days in recorded history.
It was about -30 degrees with the wind chill, as well as about -15 where we stand.
Which is crazy. And a really good point. You know, we're always trying to push limits and you know, see exactly how far we can take things. But when it's this cold, you absolutely have to make certain that if you're going to be spending the night in the woods, if you're going to be doing something like this, make sure you have whatever sleep system you're using rated for the temperatures you're going to be using it in. So we knew going into this that the underquilts were rated between 30 and 40 degrees. We knew that. But since we were already up here, we had the proper, safety folk around and location, a nice warm spot, we thought we'd try it anyway.
Yeah, why not?
Exactly. So what we didn't get to do yesterday was look at the Blaze underquilt. So since it's, a little warmer today, I think it's in the 20s today.
It is.
Which is not too bad considering last night. So we're going to actually get her back in the hammock. We're going to show you how to put the Blaze on it with the top quilt. And we're going to try and take those same readings that we did last night. We have the wireless thermometers already in her pocket and her boot. So we're going to go from there and see if it works out a little bit better when we're actually using it in the proper temperature ranges. We have the Blaze underquilt. We're going to get it out and put it on the hammock.
We are.
So it's about 26 degrees right now, so we're moving closer to what this system is meant to do. It's almost identical to the Vulcan in how it looks and how it works. Obviously a different color. This is made from duck down, just like we said earlier. So let's go ahead and put this on there. Grab either end, just like that, and find a hammock clip.
All right.
And just like on the Vulcan, find your little point down here and pull it snug. So pretty simple. We already have our top quilt in here, so we're gonna go ahead, put her in here, and see how long it takes her to get comfortable and nice and warm, and go from there. Now you see how, just like with the Vulcan, it comes up around her, and then this is where we just pulled it out of the bag. It may actually take it just a little bit of time to kind of puff up and add that insulation. So right before you get in it, you may actually want to take it out of the bag 10 or 15 minutes prior, just to allow for, you see they almost look like they're inflating, and it's just that compacted duck down starting to get some fill in it. It is currently about 21 degrees out. At her chest is 79 degrees, and at her feet is 62. We'll start a timer here and see where it goes. Okay, so it's been about 30 minutes, and it's still roughly the same outside temperature. At her feet, it's about 73.4, and at her chest, it's 79.7. So her feet went up about 4 or 5 degrees, and her chest is maintained about the same, which is not necessarily a bad thing because, 80 degrees is warm. So what do you think?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do this. 30 minutes in the hammock with the Blaze and the top quilt. What are your thoughts?
I definitely liked them. Within the first 5 minutes, I felt a little bit of a temperature difference. It started to warm. Within 15 minutes, I was at a comfortable position. I felt as if I would be comfortable enough to sleep, and of course, they were very comfortable. And yes, I would definitely look into one of these, of course, in a little bit warmer of temperatures.
So talk about your experience last night a little bit and your experience this evening, because it really makes a huge difference making sure you're using it in the proper temperature range. Absolutely.
Well, last night I don't feel like I got an accurate experience because the temperatures were so extreme that I would like to try it again.
Excellent. Well, so what would you recommend then from this point forward?
I would recommend putting a camping trip down on the books and getting to it, doing another test run.
Awesome. Well,
making sure that we're in the temperatures of 30 to 40 degrees.
And it's a little colder than that today, and I think you can get by, but I would really pay close attention to weather reports and make sure, like we've been saying, that you're really going to be comfortable because it can come down to a life or death situation. I mean, last night
was not comfortable.
It was scary cold. Scary cold. So something you want to watch out for. But all right, well, let's get this packed up and hit the hill.
All right.
It's been another amazing time here on Dire Times, and definitely some of the most extreme conditions we've ever been in. tonight's supposed to go sub-zero yet again. I can tell you the wind chills are probably definitely in the negative 20s because her eyelashes are frozen. I don't know if that's something you can see or not. My beard encased in ice. Definitely the most manly it's ever been. But we've had an amazing time here at Snowshoe Mountain Resort. It has been awesome. The folks here have been gracious enough to let us use their location to film this. We had no idea it was going to be so cold, and neither did they for that matter. But definitely check out Snowshoe Mountain Resort. And a huge thanks goes out to them, not only for providing this beautiful location, but for also being our sponsors for this video. They are the premier destination for Mid-Atlantic and Southeast skiers, snowboarders, and winter enthusiasts. Their mountaintop village, amenity offerings, and of course, amazing skiing make them ideal for anyone looking for a true resort experience. And of course, the fun doesn't stop after winter. Enjoy world-class events, cool mountain temperatures, beautiful vistas, and 11,000 acres of unspoiled wilderness. From adventure to relaxation, they have everything you need for that perfect getaway. Be sure to check them out in the links below. All right, so we took a look at the Eagle's Nest Outfitters underquilt line and their Igniter top quilt. Really put them through the ringer. It was an amazing time. Definitely found their limitations and, you know, proper use. I know that after a little bit, you were very comfortable in that. What are your thoughts on the hammock systems?
I really liked it. I have an Eagle's Nest Outfitters hammock myself, and I got to learn a little bit more about their equipment and test it out. So I will definitely be looking into and buying one of the underquills and the top quill for myself. It was under the right conditions. I will be doing it again. It was just a little too uncomfortable, but I'm glad that I pushed myself to the extremes, got out of my comfort zone, and got to experience some new bits of life.
Excellent, and it was an absolute pleasure having you. I really appreciate
thank you
coming out here and doing this with us. I tell you, we've got to get to a much warmer place.
We do.
This is ridiculous. If you'd like to check out a little bit more of what my channel has to offer, you can check out the Eagle's Nest Outfitters One Link video here, some practical self-defense videos here, or some just really cool stuff out in the world right there. So, I am your host, David Dyer. This was Dyer Times. Thanks again, Lindsay.
Yes.
And we'll catch you next time.
Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.